Set in May and June 1940. I'm not going to give you a history lesson because, frankly, I would fail. Christopher Nolan film. I don't know if you're a fan of Christopher Nolan. I'd have to say I'm a bit...
Did he make Incepticon? Because if he did, sign me up, brother. And that other one, Momentum, Incepticon, I'm in.
I think they're both Tour de France racing teams. However...
But did he make those films?
He made Inception and he made Memento.
Okay, there you go.
Which are...
They're good films.
I think you must have bought those in Thailand. Did you on DVD?
From a guy on a blanket, just had them out and they looked really good, the covers.
Couldn't understand the thing that was going on the screen.
I wouldn't play.
Anyway, he's most famous for probably the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Interstellar, Memento, Insomnia, which is a terrific and overlooked film in his body of work, I think. Anyway, Dunkirk is, I suppose, in a superficial way, it's probably the most straightforward film he's made, in that it's very much about an historical event. We know what happens in this event. Basically, there's somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 British troops basically trying to get the hell out of France. They converge on the beach at Dunkirk, and over the space of a week or so, various efforts are made to get them off. The Germans are bombing the crap out of them. A lot of them don't get off. I think they lost somewhere around about 35,000 men on that beach. But remarkably, they ended up getting somewhere north of 300,000 off and back to England. And I mean, it's kind of it's incredible to think how differently World War II could have turned out had they not managed that evacuation, really, because that was the bulk of the British fighting force at that point in time. So what the film does is give you a sense of being there. It's completely immersive, constructed around three storylines. One is Nolan does this thing where he's got these little titles that flash up very early on in the film, and I think it says by land 1 week, by sea 1 day, by air. I don't know if it actually says by. I don't think it does say by. I think it says air, land, and sea. So air 1 hour. And what this is about is giving you a sort of a sense of the spell of the experiences. So those who are on land are there for a week. It's a day's sail to England, and it's an hour in a Spitfire. And if you're lucky, you'll get to go back. You have these multiple storylines, and you have a sort of a fourth element where Kenneth Branagh plays a naval commander who is overseeing the evacuation. So what you've got is these converging storylines, or these sort of separate storylines that converge towards the end. 3 separate timelines where the events in them are happening at a sort of a different rate, in a way. And you get a sort of like a juddering backward and forward motion in these storylines where you it's a little bit confusing at first, where you go, hang on, didn't that already happen? Is he showing the same scene again, or is it a different scene and they all look the same? Because that's, repetition is part of what goes on in warfare. Somebody gets shot in the head, the next person gets shot in the head, and so on. And it eventually becomes clear that what he's doing is basically showing these timelines sort of juddering along in different rates until they finally converge. It's a really clever structure. It's about the chronology, it's about the characters. It's almost wordless. There's very, very little dialogue in this. There's very little character development. It is one of the purest action films I've ever seen, in the sense that you're basically, everything in it is driven by action, people's actions, and it's not about what they're saying and not about what they're saying they're going to do. It's not about understanding context. It's just about understanding the moment and what people do in that moment, how they respond to their circumstances in those moments. It is absolutely, I think, a compelling piece of cinema, and one that I would urge you to see, if you're going to see it, on the biggest screen you possibly can. He shot it, I think, something like 40% of the footage is shot in IMAX. The rest of it in 65mm, which is projected at 70mm. And it is incredible getting that scope, that size. It actually, the scale of it is pertinent to the story as well, because it is all about the distance between here and there, What about exposition? One of the things that I don't like in films is too much exposition, and you say... I don't think you'll have any problem with this then. You say there's no talking, there's no explaining. No explaining. Right, no learnings. Some people have had a bit of an issue with the fact that it's almost contextless. If you don't know... Well, see, too bad. They need to go and see some Trevor Howard movies, I reckon, or... or go to the library. Above Us the Waves. I mean, there's so many great Second World War movies. Indeed. Or
in fact, even better, you could go to the library and check out a book on the Second World War, or the causes of, or one of those counterfactuals which tell you what happened if the British didn't get off the beach at Dunkirk.
Yes, and there are many of those, and they are worth contemplating, I think. And this film does, in fact, I reckon, give you a little nudge towards thinking about what that could have been like. There's a curious little issue around Dunkirk and IMAX. The Astor Cinema in St Kilda, home of 70mm
it is
cinema in this city.
Spartacus
done a very good job of showing and making sure people can see 70mm film on film over the years. Desperately wanted to show this in first release. Right, they'll probably get it 5 or 6 weeks down the track. Yeah. The distributor, Roadshow, said no.
Right,
you can't have it. You can't have it, even though they let them have Inglourious Bastards. They've shown various other films in first release in 70mm over the years, but no go this time round. At the same time as they were being denied that, and you could make all sorts of suggestions about why that might be, but probably top of the list is that Roadshow/Village has a cinema just down the road called the Jam Factory, and why would they have people going to see it at the Astor, 1,000-seat cinema in 70mm when they could have a couple of hundred people down in a standard cinema down the road? Anyway, at the same time, IMAX actually put in its cinema at Melbourne Museum its old 1570 film projector. They reinstalled it because Christopher Nolan is such a passionate advocate for 1570, as in 70mm film projected on celluloid, right, and for IMAX cinema. And so they've actually gone to this extraordinary length to get an old projector back in the cinema so they could show it in his preferred format. While another cinema up the road is being denied the opportunity to show it in his not his top format, but his second top format, which is 70mm film. So a curious little side story there, I think, on the Dunkirk front. A little battle
of itself. I've not seen a lot at the IMAX. I like going to the IMAX. I saw some film in space where there was this inexplicable person who has no business in space, and it made no real plausible sense. And when you're in space,
was that Matthew McConaughey by any chance?
No.
You're not talking about Interstellar.
No, it's the other one with Sandra Bullock.
Oh, Gravity.
And George Clooney, yeah. That was an exciting film, but at the same time lacked the fundamental plausibility that any film in space has to have with me. Okay?
Which is,
why is she there?
Why is she
there? A very good friend of mine asked me that very question when I said, hey, I went and saw that Gravity film. And this friend of mine is Spanish. What is she doing in the space? Why is she in the space? I went, oh, she's a doctor? Yes, but why is she in the space? And I had no answer for that. And I thought, yes, damn it.
$20 million in a share of the back end. I mean, it's pretty obvious why she was in space.
Yeah, well, I like that film too. Sometimes I'll like things despite their lack of plausibility, and sometimes I won't. Tell me one thing. Is there anybody in a white flying suit?
Well, no, not quite a white flying suit. But Tom Hardy does play a Spitfire pilot, and he spends most of the film with a face mask on, so that he is spookily like Bane.
That's the Tom Hardy we know and love, isn't it?
Spookily like Bane in a certain director's Batman film. But he's also in a very confined space.
Yes.
So it's like the driver character in Locke.
Yeah, that's a film I love. Locke.
Yeah, terrific.
I love that film.
Anyway, 2 points I would make about Dunkirk. One is, see it on the biggest screen you possibly can because it is utterly immersive. And the other is, pay attention to the soundtrack because this is probably the most impressive use of sound design I can think of in the cinema. It's not just the score by Hans Zimmer, which is absolutely kind of overwhelming, and you either like Hans Zimmer or you don't like Hans Zimmer, but it's pretty hard to ignore, and especially in this film.
I would say that is absolutely true.
Yes. But it's not just that, it's actually the full impact of the sound design. So the score is just actually a small part of, well, not a small part, but it's a part of a much bigger, dare I say, picture when it comes to the sound.